Hey everyone, welcome to Be Our Guest, our weekly virtual happy hour with industry professionals. I'm Dev Janki, Artistic Director of Live and in Color. We are a not-for-profit theater company based in New York and Connecticut, developing new plays and musicals that promote and celebrate diversity. For more information, check out our website, liveandincolor.org. After a very exciting weekend full of joy and relief for the future of our country, I am so excited to talk to a group of people who are creating a brighter future in the theater industry through their work. So grab a drink and please start leaving your questions for our incredible guests in the comments. Today, we will be speaking to 4 of the 8 founding members of the Industry Standard Group, the first completely BIPOC commercial theater investment and production organization focusing on increasing the presence of BIPOC investors and producers in the field. Please join me in welcoming Adam Hyndman, Sammy Lopez, Cynthia J. Tong, and Robert Laqui. Hi, everyone.
Hey. Hi.
Hi.
How are you all?
Happy in the happy hour. Great.
Yes.
So good to be here, Dad.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining me. I've been so excited to talk to you. First of all, I want to know where each of you are joining us from.
I'm joining from Manhattan, traditional lands of the Lenape and Muncie people.
And Sammy?
Yes, I'm also in Manhattan.
As well, I'm in Manhattan, right south of Penn Station.
Fantastic. And Cynthia?
I'm currently in Los Angeles, but normally I'm in Brooklyn. As of yesterday, I'm in Los Angeles.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you again for joining me. Before we get into your amazing work with the Industry Standard Group, I'm curious how each of you found your path to producing. I'll start with Cynthia. You were a dancer for 22 years. When did you know you wanted to start producing theater, and how did that sort of transition happen?
Yeah, I will first say that I was a dancer for 22 years, never professionally. Unlike some of the other people in this group, I always thought I wouldn't be a professional dancer, and I am still not a professional dancer. I actually started producing, I think, my first dance shows in high school, and I didn't realize I was doing that. It's pretty much the typical, I think, producing path. You're organizing, you're just making sure that things are happening. And when I arrived in New York City and I was doing some other work that was not related to the arts, I realized how much I missed it, and I started to go see theater a lot, and I realized that I wanted to be doing more than just being an audience member. And so I found my way into producing.
That's wonderful. Are you dancing at all still now?
Awkward dancing in my room by myself.
Well, maybe we can lure you back into the dance. What kind of dance did you do when you were performing?
I studied ballet strictly for 8 years and then branched out into lyrical, a little bit of hip hop, jazz, competition dance, kind of what you see on TV with Abby in that dance studio on TV. But we were never good. And so it was actually really fun because we didn't have to try to win. So we really just enjoyed doing going to competitions and having teenage sleepovers and that kind of thing. And then I branched off into modern when I was in college.
That's so cool. Adam, in addition to your career as a performer in Broadway shows such as Once on This Island, Aladdin, and Hadestown, you are also very active in your community. You're even on the board of Broadway for Racial Justice. There it is. How does your activism feed what you decide to work on?
Yeah, I think that our authenticity can really be a filter to that which we can be most productive in contributing. I think for people of color, we don't have the privilege all the time to hide behind other opportunities or a wealth of resources. So for me, my activism really became about just embracing who I was, the intersections that I get to be a part of. And I don't say that in kind of like a in a self-serving way, in that like I'm only focused on the intersections that I hold, but by being intentional about my heritage, about my people, it became just a natural expression for me to see what opportunities I could best serve and best speak to in terms of being an advocate or putting my energy and time in that investment. Yeah. Wow,
that's so beautifully said. Rob, like all your colleagues, you are a multi-hyphenate artist. You're an actor, dancer, producer, choreographer, puppet builder, production, and for the production coordinator for National Theatre America. How does being involved on both the artistic and business side of productions inform one another for you?
I mean, I think, our trajectory to where we are is always such a unique thing. And I've had the benefit of just having these opportunities to really expand what those definitions are, because they really are just related to each other. What I've learned as a dancer, as a puppeteer, I've taken into sort of creative producing, and now sort of taking what I've learned as a creative producer into sort of justice work and social justice work into this industry. So you learn that it's all related if you let it be related. I think if you separate it within yourself, then it will remain so. But the other things that I'm doing now outside of the industry, I can see how valuable the roles I've had before play into it. So it all kind of is one journey to some degree, and I've just felt really, really lucky and fortunate to have gotten to know the people within this group, and it definitely feels like the right moment and a certain amount of fate and kismet that brought this specific group together to do this specific work, because our trajectories really and our personalities and our styles really complement each other. And I can honestly say that it's not an ego-driven thing, and it's definitely everyone that's involved with this group is doing it for the right reasons and for the right intentions.
That's so wonderful. Sammy, I want to talk to you. Your first off-Broadway producing credit was in 2018 for the hit Be More Chill, which had this amazing following. There it is. What was it like to see this show grow so fast?
It was incredible. Like in addition to being a co-producer on the show, I was working on the social media campaign. I work for Marathon Digital, which is a leading social media agency here in New York, and we work on Broadway, off-Broadway, and regional theater productions. And being a part of Be More Chill on both sides of, wearing the producer hat and then also helping with the social media was so incredible, because it truly spoke to the power of where we are digitally and how social media can be used to help amplify all types of voices that, have been wanting to see digital come to fruition in a movement almost. And I think with the themes of Be More Chill, it felt so amazing to kind of bridge the two worlds of like this very like intense social media fandom and this, Joe Iconis musical that got so many people into the theater that likely haven't been before, or just didn't even really put off Broadway on their radar as a teenager. And so suddenly we had all these teens like swarming the Signature Theater on 42nd Street, and it was epic. It was really awesome to be a part of.
I was there. It was like a rock concert. It was crazy. The loudest performance I'd ever gone to with the screaming kids. It was amazing. Yeah, I think it really was how that show came about and how it was marketed was sort of a game changer for the business, wasn't it? Just in terms of how we approach.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the shift into user-generated content and, giving the fans a true voice was definitely a tentpole in what we were trying to do within the campaign on social media, and, giving, theater kids the chance to be in the spotlight. It was awesome.
That was so great. You all are so crazy talented and come from such extraordinary backgrounds, individually, and now as a group, let's talk about the industry standard group. This came out of the need to create more BIPOC representation in commercial theater, not just on stage, but also behind the scenes. Can one of you or all of you tell me about the mission of the company?
Sure. Well, this started because we all occupy a space as in commercial theater producing here in New York, where we all really realized that for the most part we were the only BIPOC people, identifying people in these rooms a lot of the times, most of the time. And seeing how the decision-making process really just kind of winnows upwards, that a select few group of people, mainly, Caucasian men for the most part, are making a lot of these decisions that shape the entire industry. So the importance of representation in those rooms and in that part of the industry just kind of became highlighted as we kept participating in it. So the other thing that's really interesting is, our core group, we all sort of gathered in this moment. So a lot of us haven't actually physically even met before, and very tellingly haven't necessarily even worked together before. So even within the industry, we were siloed in our own sort of projects and organizations. So what it looks like in terms of how we engage each other as BIPOC individuals within the industry, and also how our presence as a collective can shift what the industry actually is able to achieve in terms of representation and equitability.
And I would also say, to add on to what Rob mentioned, is that the productivity of our coalition is not lost on me, that all of our experiences resonated in deeply profound and similar ways, having not worked together, the majority of us. So that's saying something about norms, about tropes that are happening across the industry. So when we came together and were able to put our collective experiences to see some gaps that need to be filled, that's where I think the three prongs or the pillars of the industry standard group really came together, which are for access, disruption, and support. We're looking to provide greater access for BIPOC people on all sides of theater making. We're also looking to disrupt models that have traditionally not provided the most equitable futures for folks to participate, and even to see folks who are participating or being practitioners opening up the idea that you can occupy multiple lanes or have multiplicity. So disrupting that idea, and as well supporting folks from the ground up, supporting people from not just at really exciting or momentous points in their career, which we are often want to do, but also supporting folks from the entire onset of their journey.
It's really incredible. I'm curious, whose idea was it initially to begin this group, and how did you end up forming this incredible 8-person team?
I think that sits mostly with me. It's weird to claim credit for something that I feel is such a collective. But when I first started with the National and being in those rooms and really realizing that I was the only BIPOC identifying person, and recognizing how people's careers are made in a second by a decision by a person, and also how teams kind of traveled en masse together usually. Like, oh, we always use the same designer, we always use the same general manager, we always, and so that keeps it very separate from other groups that just don't feel invited to those tables. So from those experiences, and then sort of working with Mara Isaacs and her company Octopus Theatricals, getting to sit in the Hadestown production rooms, which were probably the most diverse production rooms I've been in. And so Tony Israel, who is another one of our core cohort, talking to her, and then in this moment of pause and this moment of racial reckoning, how this conversation, like I said, organically and intentionally grew to the group of 8 of us. And we, and being very intentional about the ask. It wasn't just like this random, why don't you just come along? There was, a thought process in who we wanted to invite into the building conversation and the building phase of this. So it definitely feels like an evolution from the original thought, but it feels like such an important and even a better version than I had ever anticipated it being.
That's amazing. I want to talk a little bit before I move on to the next question, just about, since you mentioned Hadestown being the most diverse sort of room to be in that you've experienced. I mean, we talk about that a lot at Live in Color, just what it feels like when you are in those rooms and how important those rooms are and how rare they are. Can you guys talk a little bit about that and what that means to us?
Yeah, I mean, so with the industry standard group, we have a weekly team meeting, and you know, the feeling that you get leaving that meeting is, you know, the one time in my week where I am, you know, creating something with other BIPOC folks, which I have never done before in my whole career. I've never sat in a room, and granted we're in a virtual room, but it's still the best virtual room I've ever sat in, because I feel like there's this sense of community and sense of intentionality that I just haven't received in another room before. And I feel like we raise each other's voices in a powerful way. And I feel like that is the key there. It's feeling the comfortability and, you know, whatever safe space means to us, you know, I feel like that's what we've captured within our group so far. And I think, you know, it's hard to feel that in a room. And so it's a great crew that has been formed.
There was someone else going to say something?
Oh, I was just going to add that I think it's been incredibly organic. I think that's what's been so special about being in a room like that. And I'm also agree with Sammy. I haven't really experienced that until the pandemic, until we were able to gather virtually, to be able to be in a room full of majority or only BIPOC folks. And so that's been particularly inspiring, that we've all been mission driven as well. And so the mission has led us to where we are. And that also is something that I understand and I know to be incredibly rare.
Yeah. There recently was an American Theater article released about the company. It was so wonderful. There it is. Sammy, in the article, you mentioned how the lack of representation in the industry on the producing side has made it hard for you to find a mentor or someone to model your career after. How do you start forging a path that doesn't have any blueprints for it?
Exactly. And I think that's been a question where I you know, a few years ago, I was, you know, leaving my office and thinking, like, who are the people that I can, you know, kind of see my trajectory of where I want to be. And I think on one side, like, that can be very discouraging, but on the flip side of where we are now, it's almost it's more of an empowering feeling to know that, you know, when we do come together and when we are able to identify a mentor or someone that is able to just hear out our ideas or give us some form of insight, that, you know, at the end of the day, we're all going to rise together. So with the industry standard group, what is exciting to me is the moment of connection and meeting other BIPOC folks that are, you know, you can see a trajectory of where you want to be. And I think, you know, in a way, community is how we move forward together. And I think without those clear, you know, moments of connection, it's really hard to find your place and feel good about where you are in this industry at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. You all are really creating a different model for funding and producing on Broadway. Can you explain what that model looks like?
Get your checkbooks ready. So oftentimes we think about kind of two ways of theater being produced. We've got not-for-profit and we've got commercial theater. And there's precedent for the two models to merge with enhancements or development. But systemically, if we're thinking about how theater is produced and developed on the commercial side, it really puts the onus on individual investors and providing that opportunity for profit participation. So with the nature of the industry getting so expensive, let's just say, that, risk reward is really heavily on one side, which is also creating a concentration of power and decision making, right, on that financial side. So it's less cooperative. Our model is looking at a community fund that can provide notes to shareholders. Particularly, we're inviting BIPOC members across the industry to join in this fund. And with this collective resource, we're able to contribute into productions, whether they be at various levels, but the profits that are coming in are distributed through the fund so that each shareholder has participation within the different, let's say, portfolio that we have. And that helps BIPOC people because it's sharing risk. It's also allowing folks to contribute into multiple projects instead of the high access point at which typically investors have to enter the scene and put all of their risk into one project. We've got some other models that we can get into more detail about because we've all been learning a lot more on the financial structure of that, and we're excited to be hosting monthly town halls for the community to really parse into what the details of this and how this is a more stable and beneficial model for us to be participating in the development of theater when we get back in a safe place to do so.
Actually, that was going to be my next question. Just how can people get involved with the company? Right now, I guess. I mean, it's sort of is right now, and then also when we finally come out of this. Are the town halls sort of open to the public? Is that sort of the?
So we'll have multiple sort of engagements for different ways to be involved with our group. We have our website, which is up. Our social media channels are up as well. And, our website contains a lot of information about how to either donate. You can, an allied donation can come in, but we're really only seeking in terms of investment for memberships, people that identify from BIPOC communities. We felt that that was a really important aspect to what this fund is, that the buy-in and the stake at the level of investment is coming solely from BIPOC sources. So we will be amplifying within our networks and social media channels and our website, and you can subscribe to our group on the website and put in your contact information on the website as well. And we'll do our own reaches out to communities to come to the town halls that are meant solely for membership, and then we'll have also town halls that are more general for maybe the industry, and then we'll also have informational meetings potentially for allies as well. So we're doing the work to kind of inform people at various levels about how they can be engaged with this group.
With Broadway currently shut down, what do you think commercial theater will look like when it reopens? The $1 million question, right, for everyone?
I think we hope that.
Any thoughts?
Yeah, let me just figure this out and I'll get back to you. I actually have a plan for the entire opening. I'm happy to reveal on this chat that I have actually solved the problem of theater, and I will be unrolling that soon. I really think that it's dependent on the vaccine and the feeling of safety more than anything, the reality of safety, but also the feeling of safety. I think theater makers and I know producers are really excited to get back when we can. And I think the rollout will be slow, but I'm really confident that in a few years, we're going to be back and booming and hopefully working within different models at that point. I don't think it'll be quick, and I think that's part of necessary change. And I'm excited though, because I know that all of us are going to stick it out and figure out how we can help participate to make that better. And I really hope in 5 years that it's we're seeing more stories. We're following artists to what they want to do. I think that's always a tricky part of producing also, is whether you're producing for your artist or for other reasons, and that we're working more collaboratively and more in coalition.
Yeah, and tagging on that, there's so much to be seen about how things will actually transpire, but one thing that I'm pretty sure of is that when we get back into especially commercial theater, that's going to be slower. That's one thing that we can be sure about, that there's a rate of urgency and there's also a rate of responsibility. And I think to be able to incorporate everything that we've learned over this year, to be intentional about our racial awakening, about safety, about health, about whose voices are being included in the development and in the entire transaction of theater making, it's going to require us to take more time. And I don't think that's a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when we were initially working on the formation of the group, we were looking a lot at what has been on Broadway in the last 5 years, and what, who are those gatekeepers that have been, bringing material to Broadway, the producers that are above the title of Broadway shows. And when the industry does return, my hope is that those names that are above the title on Broadway reflect the diversity of our country and the stories and the artists that deserve to be sharing their stories at the Broadway level and beyond. I think, if there's anything we've learned during this moment, is that we turn to art to heal us. We turn to art to uplift us. We turn to art to make us feel like there's some sort of normalcy right now. And so I really hope that when Broadway is back, that at least those gatekeepers are making space at the table for others.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I mean, I think, I always say, like, artists are so resilient. We're like cockroaches. We're going to survive anything. So I'm also very hopeful that we're going to come out of this even better than before the pandemic. I think we have a few questions from our viewers. Let's see. Lori writes, how would you define producing? Great question. Anyone want to take that?
I mean, I think there's this tendency for people to think of a producer as sort of that, stereotypical, like, wealthy, upwardly mobile, cigar smoking, I don't know, like the guy from the Monopoly guy.
Yeah.
And from my experience, what it really means is that you're a problem solver, really. You're a creator and a problem solver. So it's like you have this puzzle in front of you that, some people have done similar puzzles, but it's never the same puzzle. But you need to figure it out, and you were told that you had a day to figure it out, and then someone walks in and go, oh, actually, you have 3 minutes to figure it out. Sorry. And then also it's on fire, and you're also on fire. So, and then you do it, and then you go, okay, you take a step back, you sort of activate your network and your experience level, and try to figure out how to solve this puzzle, and hopefully be proud of the thing that you've been able to accomplish, and the solve that you've been able to make with this thing. So it's as an analogy, I feel like it's also like you're building a plane while the plane is flying as well.
Uh-huh. Anyone else want to jump in?
Yeah, I mean, I've always just thought of producing as you're the connector piece. Like you're bringing the artists, like, who will do their best at staying in their lane and making their lane the shiniest lane possible, so everyone can just be driving down that highway the same way.
Yeah.
We are all about the metaphors on here.
I love it.
Yeah, I traditionally think of a producer as a theatrical midwife. You're charged with seeing something from germination to its fruition. And it's a great question, because producers have to wear a lot of hats sometimes, because they sometimes are specifically there to fill the gaps. And they might be performing lots of roles. But I sometimes think about it as like a theatrical midwife.
Yeah, I feel like producing in a way, like I was producing before I realized I knew it was producing. I feel like there's just there's this, like Rob was saying, the stereotype in our heads of what they are. And I think what excites me about the industry standard group is we're redefining what the role of the producer looks like and what it has been and what we've been inherited through this industry of the role of the producer. To me, it's, making BIPOC folks believe and see themselves as lead producers on Broadway or creating some piece to share it in front of, an off-Broadway house or any size space to just share a story. I feel like if you're putting the pieces together, then you're producing.
Cynthia, anything to add?
Any metaphor?
I mean, there's so many metaphors to pick from. I would just say that I think the challenge of defining what a producer does or explaining what a producer does is because there's so many ways to problem solve. I also agree that it's about taking a creative project and seeing it through to fruition, and whatever that means. Sometimes that means you're cleaning the bathrooms if everyone else could be doing their work. Like that literally is, I've done that before. And I think, yeah, we've all done it. And yeah, I don't really have much else to say. I think that's part of the reason why it's also hard to teach sometimes. And that's why learning by doing is really a big part of learning how to produce, because we're all going to find our own ways to do it. All find our own rhythms. And hopefully you get to find the artists that are most compatible with you in that way, so that you can together birth a project using Adam's metaphor. But yeah, it's tricky. I don't have another metaphor to offer.
And sort of to revisit what we were talking about earlier in terms of mentorship and education, to sort of bridge that, where we're looking at mentorship not as this, I did this thing, so you do this exact same thing and you'll have the same exact success as I do, which is sort of the model of how much producing has been taught, right? In programs and in practice. So what we do as a group collectively with the industry standard group is our trajectories to getting to this room have been so varied and interesting. We're bringing that to the table and our collective experience to the table, and we hope that can be the model by which things then get produced and radiate outwards. So that we're not going to be telling the members how to produce a thing. We'll say, this is our experience in this industry. What do you bring to the table? What experience do you bring to the table? What moments do you bring to the table to grow this industry outward, and so that we can expand the stories and the narratives and the people in the room. We're not trying to replace people at the tables. We're just trying to make the table bigger for everyone to sit at.
So great. Let's take one more question. I gotta put on my glasses for this. Nature Boy Mike says, why do you think there have been so much racial reckoning and movement for change in the theater and not in other industries in these past 6 months or so?
I think because we're shut down. I think it's because our industry has the distinct position of not being able to hide from it or move on or displace the uncomfort and the vulnerability that's required to reckon with this. There's no opening night, to put that email to the side. There's no project to just put a little bit more priority above this. So there was a magnifying glass on this particular issue that has been insidious and baked into the fabric of not only our industry, but our entire society. So it is, it's been past due, and the pandemic shutting our particular industry down, which centers on convening and gathering, was a particular lightning strike that I think if we don't continue to be intentional about it, I don't think we'll ever get the chance again.
So true. So
piggybacking.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. No, it's totally fine. I was just going to say that I also think we have a industry of people who are willing to speak up and who have practiced that before. And the size of our industry, we're big, but we're not that big. And the fact that it's so based on relationships. I also work other jobs, as many of us do, and it's just not the same type of demand that we require of each other, which I think is why it's so exciting to be in this industry as well.
Yeah, well, why do we stick around with this crazy industry that, you know, it's like a roller coaster, right? Daily.
That too.
2020.
I know. I always think like with the industry, because I always think of it as a week-to-week industry, because you truly never know what's going to happen next week or whatever the grosses were the previous week. It's like everything is so like in the moment, where with the pause, it's like I suddenly am like planning months in advance, and I'm like, whoa, like I haven't operated a week out in a long time, more than a week out in a long time. So I think that's been a nice time to connect with other people and talk about the feelings that we've been carrying with us whenever we came into the industry, and being able to activate.
That's really incredible. We are out of time. I told you it would go so fast. But, I just want to say Live and in Color helps foster the work of BIPOC artists. So it is extremely exciting for me to talk to a group that is making space for BIPOC investors and producers so we can diversify all sides of the industry. It's more important than ever to showcase this kind of work. Please consider donating in support of Live in Color's artists. The stories we tell have the power to change hearts and minds. And for more information on the Industry Standard Group, go to theindustrystandardgroup.com and check out the amazing work these incredible people are doing. Also, be sure to tune into Be Our Guest next week for a very special episode. Live and in Color has partnered with Emerson Stage to commission 17 writers to create an entirely new virtual musical called This Golden Day that will be premiering in the coming weeks. We will be talking to the artistic director of Emerson Stage, Annie Levy, as well as a few writers of the show, Tim Huang, Rona Siddiqui, Yan Lee, Jessica Wu, and Tia DeShazor. It's going to be an incredible conversation, so please tune in then. And thank you to everyone who tuned in today. Thank you, Adam, Cynthia, Sammy, Rob, for joining me. I have to say, like, I'm so glad you all found each other, and I'm so glad that I found you, because, you know, as you were saying, like, so many of us didn't know each other existed, and now that we do, it just gives me such hope for the future of our industry. So thank you. Adam, will you lead us in a toast before we say goodbye?
Sure, if we can all raise glasses and toast to a more equitable future, but also to a more gorgeous future.
Love it. Thank you all. Cheers.
See how the future looks bright.